All right, we are back. Stop number 3 on the 2026 WSL Championship Tour season, the Bonsoy Gold Coast Pro presented by GWM. It's in the books, won by Steph Gilmore and Ethan Ewing in absolutely cooking snapper rocks. Congrats to both of them. This is the Lineup Podcast. I'm Dave Prodan, and I'm here with Australia's own Jesse Starling. Jess, so honored to have you on and your insights here to break down what we all just witnessed over the last few days. And to be honest, hopefully this is, the first of many appearances we can persuade you to come back on the podcast. But for listeners out there that might not be overly familiar with you, what's the 2-minute background on Jess Starling?
I actually was thinking about this because it must be so random for surf fans to see this young Aussie girl just pop up on the broadcast so randomly. But I grew up competing on the WSL all through the junior ranks in Australia. And then I did about 2 or 3 years on the Kiwi, just all around Asia and whatnot. And I got halfway through competing and I loved it, but I just realized I wasn't super passionate about it anymore. And I was always just that really annoying grom that just never stopped talking around the event sites. And I was like, hey, I could have a career in talking. So I ended up, actually John Schmooker ended up putting the first ever microphone in my hand. I think I might have been 17. And I was doing beach comms all along the east coast of Australia. And then that kind of just snowballed into me doing some broadcasts with Surfing Australia. And then I got the call up to do a couple WSL QSs. And I kind of hustled on the Kiwis for 4 years with a goal of being a CT commentator in mind. And then last year got on the CTs and then somehow they still like me. So I'm just still rocking up on the CTs. But yeah, just a young Aussie girl that grew up surfing and loves surfing. That's kind of my background, pretty much.
It is a fun, apprenticeship. I went through a version of this too. When you start out and you're spending, all your time at the pro junior level or the QS level, and you're kind of putting your time in, and, if you keep working hard enough and you kind of work your way up, by the time you do start covering the CT, you kind of have a huge advantage because you're going, well, I've been spending years kind of analyzing these surfers or being sort of in the trenches on these sort of development tiers. Has that been kind of a big advantage for you? Because I'm sure some of the women on tour right now, you probably competed, probably even beat in a few scenarios.
Yeah, I actually probably think over 50% of the women on the CT I've competed against. I had heats with Alyssa Spencer, Gabby Bryan. Molly and I were best mates growing up in our childhood. I grew up on Sydney's northern beaches and Molly grew up in the Central Coast. So there was a ferry that went direct between our two places. So we would spend opposing weekends at each other's houses. And then from there, just started making international friends with girls like Luana Silva, Caroline Marks. I even had heats against Sally Fitzgibbons on a couple of QSs all along the East Coast. And then, just got to know them so well. And it's paid off to my advantage because by the time I started commentating on the CTs, it wasn't as scary because I was already friends with the girls. And I feel like that definitely works in my favor where I can draw a little bit more out of them, get a little bit more personality and not have some of those, I don't know, sometimes it can get really scary being in front of a camera, but if you have a familiar face, it's easier to break down what's going on. So just definitely using that to my advantage. And I'm lucky that I can pretty much call the whole tour my friends now, which is really cool. It's just so weird to rock up to a comp and just have a normal convo with Felipe Toledo. And I'm like, what? Is this real life? But yeah, so definitely played out in my favor. And I feel like I know their competitive ins and outs as well, just from competing against them when I was younger. So I'm watching very closely on those girls.
Well, we're all the better for it. And as I said, we'd love to bring you back for more episodes in the future if we can persuade you to. We'll see how this one goes first. But, on that note, the Bonsoy Gold Coast Pro presented by GWM, third stop on the 2026 CT season. It's in the books. Our first segment on this podcast is winners and losers from the Gold Coast. And for any new listeners out there, these are strictly subjective picks from Jess and myself. We are trying to kind of pick at the stories behind the results a little bit. And, Miss Starling, please do us the honors and kick us off with our first loser from the Gold Coast.
This was really interesting for me to think about because as an event as a whole, there wasn't a lot of losers. It was just such a successful event. It was honestly the best surf comp I've ever been to in my life. The vibes were so immaculate. It was like a complete festival. But there was a story that really did pull on my heartstrings, and it was with a good friend of mine, Oscar Berry. He
Mm.
obviously qualified for the championship tour. He worked so hard, and seeing him qualify was such a milestone in his career. And now he's got to this level and he just cannot break out of this first round, the opening round. And he had this heat against Callum Robson at the start of this event, and he was winning 34 out of the 35-minute heat. And then Cal got a wave in the last minute, had to get a 5-5, and then just did a snap into a pretty sick lip line air rev, basically,
Yeah.
and got the score and knocked Oscar out. And it was really painful to see because his whole family's on the beach. His sister was actually crying on the beach. And you can see how much it means to them because he's surfing so good. And although, like, technically he is, like, a loser of the event, he didn't win. Everyone is other than Ethan Ewing. I feel really bad for him because, like, he's surfing so good. He's training so hard. But it just is kind of a testament to how hard the championship tour is. Like, he cannot, for the life of him, get out of this first round. So I'm really hoping Raglan's a different story for him. But hats off to Cal. I mean, to convert under pressure the way he did, that kind of had all of us scratching our head and we're like, well, touche, mate. But yeah, Oscar, it's really pulling on my heartstrings at the moment.
He's also one of those surfers I feel like has been surfing so well all year, like in the free surfs. I remember watching that WSL Fantasy training session the whole day, basically, and he looked like one of the standouts. And I'm like, this is great. It's one of those things, though, and I'm sure you felt this too in your own competitive career, where there is an advantage to competing at home, and I think we'll talk about that with some of the other Gold Coast success stories. But there's also, a lot of pressure, right? And so, such a bummer. He lost kind of in the last moment in that round one. And, the silver lining might be that, as you said, like, he's going to move on to New Zealand. It'll be a bit fresh and he'll be able to reset. But yeah, I made that same note. I'm like, it's hard to pick losers here because it just Snapper pumped for the whole event. Pumped before the event and was so fun. It took me a minute.
Sick. Like, it felt like, I've obviously never been to Coachella, like, I'm a little Aussie girl, but it felt like surfing's Coachella. Like, it was literally the mecca of the GWM Aussie treble. It was the crowd and the amount of people that were down there. It was wild. Like, I've never seen people like that. But I totally agree. Like, competing at home, I was really lucky. I felt really comfortable competing at home. Like, all of my career best results came within the Sydney region. But for Oscar, like, you could see, like, having a little bit more pressure on his shoulders. I'm so sorry, my sister's calling me.
No, that's fine.
No. But
what does she think? Does she think anyone lost that?
Yeah, well, she actually works for the WSL as well, and I think you could just see how much, like, the Australian office, like, gets behind the Australians, and especially someone like Oscar, who is so goddamn lovable, and not making it through those heats. It actually makes us all, like, really gutted for him because you know how hard they work, but everyone works so hard. So it's actually the hardest sport in the world. Seriously, surfing is crazy.
That's pretty tough. Well, I'll leave the Australians alone for a second because the first loser that I identified coming out of the Gold Coast are the American males on tour. They fell a collective 8 spots on the CT rankings. And if we want to include the sovereign surfing nation of Hawaii in there, that collective drop goes to 23. We should call it the bright spot, of course. Jake Marshall moved up 4 spots with a 9th place finish. He's now 15th. Jake looked awesome, by the way. His boards look great. His surfing looks great. But outside of that, Griffin, he falls 5 spots with the 17th. Crosby falls 7 spots with the 17th. I think those brothers actually went down back to back, if I remember. Cole,
they did, yeah.
Tough start to the season. 3rd, 17th. I mentioned the Hawaiians, so for good measure, Baron Mamiya fell 8 spots with the 17th, Seth 2 spots with the 17th, and Eli 5 spots with the 17th. So, yeah, as far as American males go, the red, white, and blue isn't exactly covering itself in glory at the moment.
No, it was really weird for me because even watching the practice sessions, I easily would have put Griffin as someone who would have been in finals day. Like, I'm not a betting person, but if I had to put money on it, I would have put money on Griffin, just with how good he was surfing and how consistent he's been in his competitive approach this year. And so when I saw him get knocked out, I was really shocked. Like, I was just like, really? But I think it really highlights the fact that the rankings are going to change so much this year. Like, and Yago kind of proved a point that you can And Griffin, actually, too. You can have a shocking start to the year and then still go on to be number 1 and 2 in the world. Like, Yago lost in the elimination round at Pipe to start the year last year, and then he won the world title. Like, if you had told him that at Pipeline, he probably would have been laughing in your face because he just got last.
Sure.
But, yeah, the Americans, for a place that historically they do really well, obviously Kelly carries a lot of the weight for the Americans at a lot of events over the season, but I was really surprised, most specifically by Griffin, just because of how gear above he was in comparison to everyone else.
Yeah.
Especially to Mateus, who, when you compare their surfing, Griffin does have the edge. Like, he's got power, he's got the decision making. I feel like he probably has a bigger bag of tricks than Mateus, just considering how good his rail surfing is, and he can rely on that. So, yeah, it was a tough loss for the Americans, but they bounced back pretty well. And I just think, yeah, it's going to be a really long year, and hopefully they don't get too bogged down in it right now.
Yeah, I going back to that day-1 training session, I don't know how long we had the permit for, if it was 6 hours, but I feel like Griffin and Crosby were out there for all 6. Like, every time I looked up, I'm like, I thought they were supposed to surf at like 90-minute like windows or whatever. I'm like, I guess if it's pumping and you're out there, then you want to get as much as you can of it. But yeah, good assessment. Who have you got for your second loser?
I feel really bad. I've gone like individualized people, but it was more based on like decision makings rather than their surfing. And the next person I had was actually Ramsey. Ramsey's turns matched Connor's, and Connor's went all the way to the final, maybe even like slightly better. Like, some of Ramsey's turns were just, I said it on the broadcast yesterday with one of Steph's turns. You know, it's a good moment when you like involuntary make a sound at a turn, and Ramsey had that effect on me. And in that opening round heat he had against Morgan, he was the better surfer in that heat, and that feels really bad for me to say because I'm a very patriotic Australian. But he just made a couple of really bad decisions. He fell on a third turn on his first or second wave. And if he hadn't made that turn, I actually think that score would have gone easily excellent for just the velocity, the power, where he placed that turn. It was a really good size wave as well. And the whole beach kind of had this whole no moment. And then he gave Morgs a wave with priority. So Morgan got a wave under his priority, and he then got the score to get through that heat. Obviously, I love that Morgs did that. I'm really good friends with Hoggy, and Hoggy's working with Morgan at all these events. It just felt like Ramsey has so much to give and is making these like minute errors that would be really easy for him to clean up, but it's like consistently happening through the season. And you can see like even Dog can see the potential of Ramsey and is like getting frustrated based on those decisions, just because Ramsey could challenge for event wins on right-hand point breaks in particular. And I feel like maybe he's missed the mark a little bit, considering we've just had Bells and Snapper, which are 2 events where he can look at the calendar and be like, finals day, because he grew up on right-hand point breaks, and he kind of missed his opportunity to bank a big result earlier in the year. So my second loser was Ramsey. And it's no disrespect to his surfing. Like, his surfing is incredible. Just the tiniest minute decisions are just letting him down at the moment.
Yeah, it's such a good one to call out too, because I think even Ramsey said he's still coming back from that injury that he suffered a couple of years ago. So I'm sure he's not 100%. But when you watch his surfing, you're like, it's not the surfing that's letting you down; it's some of these decision-making things. And I think that kind of ties into what you were saying earlier, where this tour is so difficult that like any tiny mistake, you can't really surf your way out of it because everyone else is surfing so well.
Like, if you make a mistake, your opponent is going to capitalize on it. And that's just the championship to a level. And I also believe like that's also what's harming Oscar Berry. I know that conversation is like kind of gone, but I was like, during that heat, was trying to sell Cal into a wave and went over the falls, and his leash snapped. So then he had to do a run around, lost priority, and didn't have control of the back half of the heat. So the championship tour is so gnarly and so cutthroat that if you make an error, which is, you're human, like you're going to make errors, the next person's going to capitalize on it. So it's just, it would almost feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells as a CT competitor. But then you look at someone like Gabby Medina, who's just an absolute animal and doesn't really make mistakes. And even if he does, he really does know how to clean it up. And I truly believe like that's a big difference between a CT surfer and a world champion is knowing how to make a mistake but not letting the other person capitalize on it. So yeah, Ramsey, I really hope he cleans it up. I got to go to Raglan a couple of weeks ago. His forehand looks really good too. And that knee, it looks a lot better. So I think he'll come back swinging, especially even El Salvador, the stop after. He could get a good result there.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. Well, my second loser, I'll zero in on a particular surfer as well. And similar to you, like I actually hold this surfer in such high regard from a talent standpoint, but that's, Canada's Erin Brooks. She is arguably the star of the new Red Bull film nowadays. Just amazing surfing. We've seen her surf so well at Snapper on the Gold Coast, and she's having a pretty tough season. Ninth place on the Gold Coast and ninth place in WA. Kind of barely got past Steph Gilmore in somewhat of a contentious heat out there as well, and then 17th place on the Gold Coast. Super tough draws, of course, but I just think the way that she can surf and kind of the other, elements that were lining up for her kind of out in the atmosphere between the nowadays premiere and, the potential for her to make a real sort of title intention felt on tour. Just another loss for her. And, she's sitting 15th. It will be interesting. Like, I think one of her really deadly weapons is her forehand, right? So seeing what she does at Raglan next event will be interesting. But yeah, I think second year on tour with all that potential, I think most people were probably expecting her to be, up in the top 5, and if not the top 5, the top 10.
I totally agree with that. I feel like Erin has world titles in her, just with her surfing. In that nowadays part, you're so right. For me, that was the best part of the whole film. It just was so elite. The wave that she got, pretty much 2 full rotations. The second one, I mean, it might not be a complete full rotation, but I'd give it to her. 2 full rotations on one wave. I was mind blown. And it's something that she looks so free and so loose in those free surf sections. I would love for her to bring that to Raglan, because we haven't really seen anyone even scratch the surface with that. I mean, Sally did a straight air on the Goldie this week, but Erin is easily the pioneer and really leading the charge of like how consistently she makes those. So then for her to have a bit of a rocky start at the start of the year and then move over to Raglan and hopefully do that, because when it gets windy, it's actually really great, like little pockets to do airs there. And most of her part in the nowadays film is on her left. So no, I totally agree, Erin. I feel like she should be battling for a world title. It's so hard to say because she's like 18.
Right. It's like, yeah, you need to get your life together. You're 18. It's come on, Jesus. She's like, give me a break.
I know. But I think she'll definitely do it. And she's so competitive. It's ridiculous. So you can see, even like putting on that, you can almost put like Snake as a bit of a loser in that as well, because like his 2 women have matched up at back-to-back events, so my heart goes out to Snake as well.
I know, and everyone wants, the Leandro or Richard Dogmarsh kind of later in the draw matchup where it's like, well, friendly fire, but look how awesome I did, or Adriano right at the house. But anyway, it's what it is. Well, we said there weren't a whole lot of losers from an event with pumping waves, but I think we got one more each. Who's your last one, Jess?
My last loser, which is kind of crazy to say because she did get a good result with a quarterfinals, is Katie Simmers. You could see in her soul that she really wanted to put up more of a fight against Stephanie Gilmore. Those two are really evenly matched as surfers go. Katie obviously can do airs, but as far as like barrel riding, calves, being so creative on the waves, they are the two leading the charge for just keeping us on our toes, because we know that every single time they surf, it's going to be different. Like they never draw the same 2 lines. So when I saw that heat on paper, I'm pretty sure we made that the hydrolyte heat to watch, because we were all so excited for the rematch from the Gold Coast of the last year where Steph got the jump on Katie again. Katie had a 5 as her only score until about 3 minutes to go. So sat for a really long time. And at the end, you could see her like yell at herself in the water, and they both respect each other so much. But you could see Katie really wanted more of a showdown. And I think, again, like similar to Oscar and Ramsey, it was nothing to do with her surfing, but just like that decision to sit and wait for so long when Steph was converting scores under her priority. I think when you're a championship tour surfer and a world champion at that, Katie would know that with someone like Steph, she's a momentum surfer. So the more time she's on her feet, especially at her home court, like it's going to keep getting better. So just trying to roll the dice more. I think as a fan, we probably lost in that heat as well because we wanted to see more back-to-back waves between those two. So Katie, I would love another matchup between Steph and Katie, just with how beautiful their surfing is and how far ahead they are with style. So she was my final loser at the Gold Coast, which feels really weird to say again because I don't think anyone like really lost, but just those were the moments that I was like, damn, like I just wanted more kind of thing.
Yeah, I liked the degree removal on that one where it's like we were the losers, we wanted to see them surf more, you know. And Katie, she strikes me, this is like an oversimplification, but forever people are like, oh, there's surfers on tour and then there's competitors on tour, which is kind of a knock on both of them in a way. But like if you needed to simplify, I think most people think of Katie more as like a surfer, you know, where it's like we just want to see her surf. And it's such a misnomer. I remember Yaden Nichols said this years ago when he was talking about a similar thing with Dane Reynolds, who I think a lot of people compare at least Katie's disposition, if not her surfing to. And he's like, no one like slips and lands on the CT. Everyone who is here, even if they act like they're not that interested, is like a hardcore competitor. You can't get to this place without that. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing in Katie as well, where it's like that is like burning underneath. I'm sure she's just like, I just wanted to surf more. And especially against someone like Steph and waves like that, she just wants to kind of do her thing. But yeah, that's a great one. And I guess my last one on the loser side is somewhat correlated to my first one, but you know, it's the Lost Surfboards men's team, you know, 3-time CT Shaper of the Year and no men's quarterfinalists. This is the first event that's happened to them since Pipeline 2025, which is sort of a unique event in and of itself. These are like radically different waves. And it's not like they have an insignificant men's CT team either, right? We have the aforementioned Americans and Hawaiians and the Colapinto brothers, Cole Houshman, Eli Hanneman. And then you also have reigning world champ Iago Dora, occasional Mayhem team rider Jordy Smith, as well as, unless my eyes were deceiving me, what looked like Mexico's Al Cleland Jr. was trying a few Mayhems on the Gold Coast too. So one event, I'm sure they're going to bounce back, but I'm sure the men's side of the Lost team's going to want to keep up with the women's side, and the women's side saw, you know, semifinal from Sawyer and a quarterfinal from Gabriella.
Yeah, that's such a really good point. I think with how dominant they've been, it's really weird to not have at least one male in the quarterfinals. Like even, especially someone like Iago, who has won on right-hand point breaks before, and his performances at El Salvador were out of this world. Even at J-Bay last year, like some of the airs he was pulling at J-Bay was just so cool to watch. And I think, yeah, like it's just like really random more than anything to like not have that team do so well at an event like this. It definitely does come tricky when you have guys like DHC and JS who essentially have Snapper as a wave pool to test boards out and new models. But yeah, it's definitely shaked up the rankings, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, we talked about losers, but really everyone was a winner coming out of the Bonsoy Gold Coast Pro presented by GWM. Who have you got for your first actual winner?
My first winners are the Goofy Footers. I just think the Goofy Footers had an incredible event. First of all, Carly Vast. I actually had him in my bracket challenge to go all the way to the semi-finals. He got to the quarters. Not a bad pick.
Pretty good.
Just Cali Vast like found his strides. I feel like you could see how powerful he is. He really does have that like Cole Houshman kind of power behind him. And then you look to the women's side of the draw. Nadia Arisabe had the event of her career so far. She was probably the standout surfer of the event for me, just with some of those turns she was doing. She went excellent in every single one of her heats. She had an 8.33 in round 1, an 8 in round 2, an 8.67 in round 3, and an 8.5 in the semifinals. 8.67 quarters, 8.5 in the semifinals. And then to take down other really talented goofy footers like Alyssa Spencer, who had a third at Bell's, Caroline Marks, who won her first ever championship tour event on the Gold Coast. So she kept having these matchups, and I kept thinking, oh, bugger, that's going to end her run, just with how good the competitors were she was coming up against. But her fight to stay in it and post those scores consistently, no one else was doing. No one else was posting excellent scores consistently on the women's side. And the judges were definitely making it hard to get an excellent score. Like people would
Hmm.
absolutely belt it and would come in at a 7.67. And so when she was like consistently getting eights and above, I was like, wow, Nadia could go all the way to win this. And then obviously Connor going to second. It just felt like the goofy footers, when you think about right hand point breaks, like, oh, the natural footers are going to win. And that is essentially how it turned out. But they put up an incredible fight. And I felt like we saw some of the best goofy foot surfing we've ever seen over the last 4 days.
It's a great point. Like Nadia was so impressive, and I mean, even Steph was calling it out throughout the event. It was like, this is like the best backhand surfing I've seen out here, and her turns were just full power. And you mentioned earlier, kind of, they're good waves when you let out like an organic just kind of grunt, and watching Connor, like it was like watching someone play a video game on tilt, or like if you were to like draw a cartoon of like, okay, as a goofy footer, I'm gonna like draw this like fantasy of going as fast as I can and coming up as hard as I can and just belting the lip as hard and lose no speed. And like every wave he was doing that. I'm like, how is this possible? So such a good one. The goofy footers, man, they were awesome. And yeah, it's a great one as a goofy footer. Yeah, you could have the podcast now, Jess. That's the best winner. First winner for me from the events, actually, like I've referenced it a little bit, but really like the Gold Coast itself. Best waves we've had for a contest all year. Arguably the best performance surfing we've seen for a while. Monster crowds. You've got North Stradbrooke's Ethan Ewing and Kingscliff's Steph Gilmore, both thoroughly associated with the Goldie. They take away the huge wins. You mentioned, Darren Handley, local surfboard icon, DHD, sweeps the event, takes over the front runner spot on the Surfboard Empire CT Shaper rankings. It's hard to imagine how it could have gone better for that town. And, Snapper Rocks, it's funny, like having been here for 20 years, it all kind of like melds together after a while. But it hasn't been on the CT since 2019, 7 years. It fell off with the calendar restructure coming out of COVID. And then when the Gold Coast returned to the CT calendar last season, we relocated the event north to Burleigh Heads because the bank at Snapper had gotten kind of obliterated. Burleigh was really cool as well. But, the event at Snapper, it really started the CT season for like 2 decades. And I just think there's an energy to the place. It's one of those spots where, you're always seeing the world's best kind of push the boundary of what's possible, but it feels like their performances tick up a notch on the Gold Coast, especially when there are waves. So that was a lot of fun.
I think as well, like for me, I'd actually never been, the Gold Coast is the closest CT to me growing up, but I'd actually never been to it. So this was like my first ever Gold Coast Pro, and like growing up watching the Quickie Pro and the Roxy Pro, like it was just always like this mecca, and there was always crowds on the beach. And I've lived on the Gold Coast for 5 years now, and I had mates who don't surf watching surfing and being like, I understand why you live there now. Like the vibes
Right.
just look so high. Like, and also like Australia is a very multicultural country, and to have so many different cultures and representative countries on the beach, it was just cool to see like Leo could come in and there was a swarm of Italians,
Yeah.
or Connor could come in and there was both Australians and Japanese. And then obviously that kind of old tale of the Brazos versus the Australians. Like it was like seriously split in half down the beach. And last year with Philippe and Julian in the final, it was probably more Brazilians than there was Australians. And I know that a lot of the Aussies got kind of annoyed about that. And then this year the Aussies really showed up in full force, and it was like 50-50 Brazos to Aussies. So it was like better than last year. It was like 70-30, but it was like the crowds were like fighting against each other too for like who they wanted to win in the water. And it just set the whole surf world on fire. And I feel like this is going to like ricochet across the world for like people who got to watch that event. Now be like, oh my God, I want to go to the CT. And then I feel like going into Raglan is probably just going to like carry through because everyone wants a piece of surfing now. And I said it to Ronnie at the end of the day yesterday. I was like, I obviously wasn't born or alive for like those 90s and like those like golden eras of surfing. And to me, and my based on like imagination, like that felt like the golden eras. Like the last 4 days, I felt like I was stuck in the 90s. And it was like so cool to finally experience like crowds like that at a surf event. And I feel like surfing is like Not that it ever left, so it feels weird to say, so it feels like surfing is like on the comeback. I don't know.
Hey,
Especially after this event.
That's totally fair to think. I think after that event, it was pretty special. But yeah, I don't know if you coined this, but I appreciated it a few times. Rainbow de Janeiro. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're going to travel to New Zealand. Is it like Raglan de Janeiro, Rotorua de Janeiro? I don't know. We'll figure that out. We'll find out.
Yeah, Raglan de Janeiro.
I guess we'll see. Maybe if you can win it, you can give it a nickname, I guess. But who have you got for your second winner?
My second winner is actually a Goldie boy himself, so it's like sticking on that trend. It's actually Liam O'Brien. I am such a Liam O'Brien fan as a surf fan. I just think he's surfing, his skill set particularly on a right-hand point break as well, easily matches someone like Ethan Ewing. He had just taken my breath away. Also, it's just hilarious to see like the lobby heads like floating around in the crowd. Like they were literally like massive. But Lobby, just seeing him fall off tour, it felt so wrong last year because he's just such a CT surfer. Like you don't put him in that based on like fantasy. Like you don't put him in that tier C bracket. For me, he's a tier B, really pushing on the cusp of tier A type of surfer. And then this event, he was tier A. Like his surfing was just next level. He was so elite. And that heat he had with Ethan, like if anyone was going to take Ethan down, it was actually, I genuinely thought it was going to be Liam. I thought once Ethan caught fire, Connor might not have been able to get him. It would have come down to wave selection. But Lobby, I really feel like he can walk away from the Gold Coast and feel that same sort of feeling we were talking about with Steph, like he's back and he's back in really good form and he looks really confident. And he splashed the water at the end of his semi-final. I love how much like he wanted it and like wanted to be in the final, and I thought Lobby was going to win. Like I really did. So he's my second winner just based on even that round 3 heat he had with George Pitter, like had a 9 and an 8.5. And for him to find that so quickly coming back onto the championship tour, I just feel like that's a big win for Lobby and it'll help him hopefully stay on tour for another season because it's definitely where he belongs.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And I mean, the Burley, the Lob Mafia, they look like there was more than at Snapper than there were last year. Like it was pretty awesome. And geez, he is such an amazing surfer. I think you're totally right too. It's like everyone, you know, some of those free surfing videos he's put out are just mind blowing. But anyone that's seen him surf and get waves on tour is like, this guy is like, as you said, like a B plus A level surfer. And he just needed that result, I think, to kind of get his confidence up. So hopefully he's got a taste for it and we'll see more of it because such a nice guy, such an amazing surfer. And, yeah, geez, what a performance. But yeah, second winner for me coming out of the Gold Coast is the event runner-up, but also the winner of the GWM Aussie Treble and now the CT front-runner, Luana Silva. Back-to-back finals for Luana between Margaret River and Snapper Rocks. I know she desperately wants that win. She had a quarterfinal finish at Bells. Last year, she finaled twice at Bells Beach and then again at Saquarema. And the heater she's been on after she missed the cut in 2024, all of which is just happening. She's only 21 years young. I think, you know, with so many stories happening in professional surfing, so many of them we're already talking about, I think that Luana has kind of gone under the radar just a little bit. And I'd say that she's gone under the radar until this last event at the Gold Coast. And I think why the Gold Coast was different was because her performance surfing is becoming really undeniable. And it's not that she hasn't been world-class before now, but I just think this year, and especially on the waves at Snapper, the speed, like the critical angle of her turns, her power, her strength, her style, she's just an elite surfer capable of getting elite scores. And, you know, good for her. She was like one of my favorite surfers throughout the event.
I think I said it a couple of times on the broadcast, like, when you're a born Australian, you're born with this love for the underdog. Like we just love a good underdog story. And Luana Silva is kind of always like stuck in that like underdog bracket, especially like, it's weird to say, like, even though she's like number 1 in the world, like if she came up in a heat against Gabby Bryan, you'd probably still put her as the underdog, like just because of Gabby's level. But Lulu, to come from where she has in the past, where like she was getting knocked off tour consistently. And then last year, like she just scraped to make the cut. And then she obviously went on to make another final over in Brazil. It just felt like something finally clicked into gear for her. Like she genuinely has the same amount of talent as, say, someone like Molly Picklum. Molly might have the edge on her when it comes to like barrel riding and stuff like that, but Lulu and her rail calves and just where she was placing her turns at snapper, you could see just it's night and day to what we were looking at versus 2 years ago, where she looked really nervous. She was scared of the people she was coming up against. And now you can see that she's like, no, I got this. Like, I'll take her down. And I think I said on the broadcast as well, like she has an element of sass to her surfing, like this almost like, yeah, like I'll beat her, like that kind of vibe to it. And I love the fact that she's like leaning into that. Now she's had a couple of personal changes in her life as well. And I think that's really helped her to like figure out what kind of competitor she wants to be. And whatever she's doing right. Leandra and her obviously have a great recipe at the moment because she actually looks like she could go on to be in finals day for the rest of the year. Like when you look at the season, she could genuinely properly fight for a world title this year, which is crazy to think of compared to what we saw 2 years ago, that Lulu is world number one going out of Australia into Raglan. So I'm stoked for her. I really am.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd bring up about Luana is like, you know, I think Steph is incredible. I feel like so fortunate I've had kind of a front row seat to her CT career. And I think she looked amazing at snapper. I am curious actually what you would think about this. I'm curious what she would actually say is that it's not that she wasn't trying up until the finals, but she was cruising's too aggressive a word, but she was getting great scores based on like, you know, wave knowledge and just how stylish and powerful she is. It didn't feel like she was really being pushed to like hit the section critically or go a little bit harder until later in the event. And I really think drawing Luana in the finals, I think Luana pushed her to like surf the way she did. I don't want to give anyone too much credit there, but like I think that Steph was like, it's the finals, I need to win and I need to go for like 8s and 9s here. And I think that's just another testament to Luana.
Yeah, Steph definitely has a crazy strike record of closing out finals day. Mm-hmm. And no matter where you are or who you are, to have that innate ability to do that, it is a skill that I don't think you can learn. I think you just have to be able to like close out a finals day, click into that gear. Steph even said that in her post-season interview. She said, I just love being in finals. Like I knew exactly what I had to do. I had so much clarity in that final. And I think to come up against a veteran competitor who has had to do that 34 times in her career, well, more than that, but she's successfully done it 34 times in her career and you're chasing your first, it's definitely going to be like really tricky and you're at Steph's home court. But Lulu and the fight that she put up, I agree. Like I felt like every single round she pushed a little bit harder. And she made it really simple for the judges. She just hit the lip. Like she actually just hit the lip where a lot of the other women were pushed out into the open face and were carving. Sure. But Lulu also can get extra points out of her calves where I don't think a lot of women can do that on the championship tour, just with obviously, I think they can, but Lulu more consistently can do it. And it was really proven over at the Gold Coast. And Steph obviously will always forever be rewarded for her calves just because they have that element of X factor. But for Lulu, I really do feel like her time is going to come. Like she's going to get a win on the championship tour. It would sting to have 4 second places now. But I just think she's number one in the world. She won the GWM Aussie treble. And she really proved that she's not afraid anymore. And I feel like she's not afraid to hit gnarlier sections. And she was getting 8s for falling at the end. So for Lulu, I think she's definitely come a long way. And she's set a new benchmark for women to also try and do calves and get rewarded for calves as well. Because Gabby Bryan obviously gets rewarded for her calves too, but Lulu's just like put another element in it, this event, and it paid off.
Who's your third and final winner coming out of the Gold Coast?
Okay, this is going to sound really biased, but it's myself. I know that sounds really crazy, but I had always had a dream of seeing Steph Gilmore win a championship tour event with my own 2 eyes. And I didn't know if it was ever going to happen because like I came into the CT so late. And like I mentioned, like I had never been to one on the Gold Coast prior to this one. And to watch Steph win at a home break and then to get to call that, like I was sitting in the booth and I was like, this is such a privilege. Like, this is such a privilege. And I just think Steph Gilmore is the coolest person in the world. She had her first win 21 years ago at Snapper Rocks. And then now she's just gone and won her seventh Gold Coast Pro with a 9-5 in the final. And to be able to break down that 9-5 from my own perspective and put my own twist on it. I know that sounds like incredibly self-centered, but I felt like I won the comp yesterday. Like I was like, this is the best day ever. Like I was just having the time of my life, and Steph Gilmore has been my idol for like ever. So to see her do that and like almost like watch her come out of retirement through the entire event, like she got better. I think she was surfing at 60% at the start of the event and then went all the way up to like 85, 90% at the end. So to watch that process of all of that, I just felt like that is like such a privilege that I don't take lightly, and I'm very grateful to do what I do now.
Geez, that's a great one. It's going to be hard for me to top it. I'm not going to. I'm going to just take a different lane on this one. But yeah, the third winner for me from the Gold Coast, it's actually another Brazilian, and we mentioned him once already, but that's rookie Matheus Herdy. I think, when you think about Matheus, right, he was definitely on everyone's radar a few years ago. Super explosive surfing, impressive wildcard performances, big attention-grabbing sponsorships, but he got a little bit lost in the wild trying to qualify for the CT, and he's been candid about how that's affected his confidence. He even went unsponsored for a little while, and then he clawed his way back through the CS last season. He signed with Julian Wilson and Ryan Callinan's label, Rivia Projects. JS Industries, it's supported him for years at this point. And he was telling this story that ahead of the event this year on the Gold Coast, JS put in a carbo-tuned Monster quad in his quiver. And I think Matheus I never even surfed a quad before. And he told Matheus, he's like, you will only use it at this event. Just go and try it. And despite kind of that early skepticism from Matheus, he rode it, I think, exclusively through the WSL Fantasy training sessions. He then posted a round 1 win over Reef Hazelwood, a round 2 win over Griffin Colapinto, a round 3 win over Jake Marshall before eventually coming up short to Lob in the quarterfinals. But he just looked awesome. And I feel like the alchemy of the waves that we had, like that, there's something special about like a board and a tech and a template that just fits your surfing, and it fits a wave even if it's not one that you would normally ride. I think it brought out the best in his surfing at this event. He looked really spicy but flowy and then in control. Looked like he could kind of do no wrong on it. And so yeah, I think his surfing looks awesome, and I hope that performance has kind of helped him with his confidence coming out of the last few years. And yeah, we'll see if it carries into New Zealand.
And to get a breakout in your rookie year so early on in the season, where like your fellow rookies, other than Cowley at this event, have been like almost struggling a little bit. It is a moment for Matheus to be like, okay, like I'm starting to get it. Again, working with Leandro Dora, they just seem to make it an incredible team. Leandro, Luana, and Matheus were all staying together, and they really created this like beautiful like home environment. And they're translating that across the world, and you can see that that's like easily like moving into their competitive form. So Matheus, he actually had the biggest smile on his face like the entire event, just because you could see how happy he was that he was like, I'm finally doing it. Like, this is my dream. Like, I'm living it out. And again, like, it's such a privilege to be able to see that and like see these guys like figure it out like in the spot, in the motion. And I think he was really surprising himself at some of the names he was taking down, like Griffin, and Julian Wilson was like standing on the shoreline for all of his heats, like 2 eyes, like watching him like a hawk. And so this, the knowledge that he's getting from Julian as well, it's like almost like he's got 2 coaches on the ground, and Jules almost acting kind of like a father figure, like emotional support network for Matheus right now. So it's just cool to see how much like Julian is invested in him as well, and how ready Julian is to help him take that next step in his career. And whatever they were doing at this event, it was clearly working for Matheus.
Yeah, I was going to bring Julian up as well because there's a lot of parallels, right? Both of them, a lot of attention from a very young age and big sponsors and a lot of expectations. Julian had, by any standard of measure, like an incredible career on the CT, like so many amazing performances, so many big CT wins and all types of waves. He's a pipe master. But I think he's very like cognizant of that expectation management piece of like, the expectation was a world title and whether it was him putting those expectations on himself or kind of the constellation of stakeholders around him. I think he looks at Matheus as like, this is someone who has probably felt similar things that I've felt through my career. And I think that, agnostic of Julian, CT surfers, men, women, when they fall off tour for whatever reason or leave the tour for whatever reason, it's not always easy to kind of find that next role and that next purpose. And I think that, optimistically, like watching Julian on the beach and with his family and like so proud of Matheus and, running Rivia projects and having like a horse in the race on the CT, it was very, very cool. It felt very natural, at least through the screen, watching Julian.
No, definitely. And I think as well, like there's not a lot of those like top class CT guys who are actively giving back in the sense that like Julian is with Rivia and with like standing. I can't even like begin to explain, like on the shoreline, like water on his ankles. That's how locked in he was to the heats with Matheus. And obviously Mick, he was hanging around as well. And I feel like Mick is a tool that maybe isn't utilized as much as it could be, because Mick's pretty ready to like give people advice and he will give you it in a surf but I feel like if someone wanted to lean on him in an event, like Mick would do it. And so the fact that Matheus has someone like Julian Wilson, who by the way, like was retired, got a wild card last year and then got second on the Gold Coast last year. So it's not like he doesn't still have it. Like he's absolutely ripping still. I think it's pretty cool that Matheus can like lean on that, and just that type of advice and connection that they have it's priceless. And not many of the surfers can say that they have that. Obviously Snake and Dog and Tommy Witts can give their two-piece because they've been there. Even Richie Lovett, like I would so talk to Richie Lovett if I was a competitive athlete, just because like he's won at a wave at Trestles, which is probably like one of the hardest waves to win at because like everyone can surf that wave so well. So Matheus, like it was really effortless to see their relationship, and it's not forced, and there's a lot of love between those two and a lot of respect between those two. And I feel like if Matheus said to Julian, like, hey, do you want to come on tour and be my coach? I actually think Julian would probably say yes. Like, he's so invested and they make a great team. And Matheus, you can see just how much he like admires him and wants to recreate what Julian did in his career.
I like the tip you just gave us all. So for all the lineup listeners out there, if you find yourself in the water or on the beach with Mick Fanning, ask him what you're doing wrong. Be like, hey, did you see my last wave with my hands in the right spot? What do you think?
What do you reckon?
I'll buy you coffee. Well, that's winners. And go on. Sorry.
It's pretty interesting. Like my partner competes on the championship tour as well, and but on his rookie year, like before the season started, was chatting to Mick. I think it was about Margs, and Mick was like, "You're looking for X, Y, and Z," and I was just like, "Oh, that's good to know." He's just so willing. Like, sweet. Gonna say that on the broadcast. No, he's so willing to help.
Awesome. Well, that was winners and losers from the Bonsoy Gold Coast Pro presented by GWM. We're going to take a quick break to get a word from our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to talk about surfboards. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back to the Lineup Podcast. I am Dave Prodan here with Jesse Starling. Jess, it's time to talk about surfboards. The CT Shaper Rankings, we've been running it since 2023. It is a combined ranking of men's and women's performances on the boards of the world's best CT Shapers. Matt Biolis of Lost Surfboards, they have gone back to back to back. They've got 3 consecutive CT Shaper Rankings titles. We've updated the formula slightly for this year, so we still rank all CT Shapers across all CT events. They still continue to receive points from their surfers from each event for quarterfinal or better placings. but this year we're maxing it at 2 results per board program per event. So they can come from top 2 men's, top 2 women's, or one of each, again, for quarterfinals or better. We did run this model. We ran it back across the last 3 years. Mayhem still wins each year, but the competition is a lot tighter. So big wind up, but we'll get into the Surfboard Empire CT Shaper rankings presented by Vea update from the Gold Coast. Jess, you've got no shortage of experience at Snapper Rocks and really no shortage of experience on the CT these days. So as far as equipment goes, did anything stand out to you in terms of what the world's best were riding at Snapper this year?
Yes, a couple of things. Obviously, I want to give a big mention to DHD surfboards. I am a proud DHD team rider myself. I've been riding for Darren for 5 years, and he clearly tests all his board at Snapper Rocks and why wouldn't you? Because they're just 2 of the best waves, and you could see that his boards were perfectly made for the pocket. But there was a couple of boards that really stood out to me. Number one was Mateus Hurdy's quad from JS Industries. He mentioned he'd never surfed a quad before prior to this event. So to have done so well on a fin setup that you're not really used to, and quads are genuinely hard. I actually find quads really hard to surf. And I was talking to Flick and I was like, hey, do you surf quads very often? She's like, only if it's really, really big and I need extra speed. But I actually find quads quite difficult to surf. Mateus made it look so easy, and I'm kind of jealous how easily he transitioned from thruster to quad. I was like, okay, really need to up my game here. But just seeing that setup work so well for someone so quickly, and similar sort of storyline to Jake Marshall as well. He mentioned he randomly ordered a swallowtail and it ended up working the best out of all his boards at Snapper Rocks. And we didn't see very many swallows. I feel like we don't actually see that many swallowtails full stop anymore. They're usually round or squash.
Yeah. And
for Jake, you could see in his turns, it had that extra amount of pop through the tail, but it also still had this really beautiful drive factor through his calves. Taylor Clark was actually at the event too, so you could see him really analysing his boards, and Marcio Suvi as well. And then 2 more boards that really stood out to me. Number one was Steph got a brand new batch of surfboards for this event, and Steph typically doesn't order a lot of boards. I actually worked at DHC for 2 years when I first moved up, and I was trying to make commentary my full-time career. Darren helped me and took me on so that I could work when I was home but also travel for QSs. And so I got to learn a lot about all the athletes, and Steph has this budget of boards every year and goes nowhere near the full budget. She just loves holding on to boards. And Darren he was telling me, he was kind of not annoyed, but he was like, Jess, I made her the most beautiful batch of 510s. He was they were stunning. The rails were this and that and rah-rah. And he goes, and then she goes into a factory. She finds these 2 old 5.9s and they're the boards she's surfing for the event. And I was just well, Darren, they're beautiful as well and they're working. It took her all the way to a win. But that kind of comes back to the cash cow for Steph. She genuinely does good, well on boards that are old, and she has an old faithful board that she comes back to. So it's pretty cool to know that Steph's never going to change in that sense. She's still very much herself when it comes to surfboards, and not trying to outdo these new young generations who are pushing the limits for surfboards. If Steph's got a board that works, she'll ride it, and she'll ride it to a win. And then the last one that I found really, really interesting was Lobby's board. So DHD has been around for 40 years now. And so when Darren celebrated 40 years of DHD, he created this 40-year board that was super banana-y, really rocket out, glassed in fins. I think they were 6.0 or something like that. And Lobby took one out and he was like, hey, there's something in this board. So Darren merged a Juliet, which is the Ethan Ewing model, with the 40-year board. So Lobby's normal Juliet had an extra 6 inches of nose rocker and an extra 2 3/4 inches of tail rocker. He actually ended up going and breaking that board in the quarterfinals, and then he lost in the semifinals. So he had a really good connection with that board. But seeing such a literal banana boat under Lobby's arm, and how well it was pivoting in the pocket, and it's based on a 40-year-old board that Darren made at the very start of his career, was very interesting to me. And I just love the fact that Lobby was basically essentially riding a vintage style board out there.
It's so interesting. It's one of my pet topics on this podcast is, especially with, world-class surfers like yourself, but also CT surfers, and kind of like, all right, people tend to fall into two broad camps with equipment. Like there's the one camp that's like, yeah, I'll try anything, fish, quad, like a carbon, like a single fin, whatever. And I bring all those experiences into my, high performance surfing on the CT. Those are kind of few and far in between. The bulk of people are just like, I want my one Ferrari and my one blade that I continue to sharpen in every condition at every stop. But, those points that you brought up are really interesting, where it's like, Jake Marshall, just a little bit of a change. Like, I'm going to order a swallowtail, or Mateus Hurdy, it's like try quad or something different. And, Lobby, it's like, well, here's this throwback model. And they're such finely tuned surfers that I do think sometimes when you do inject just a little bit of difference or just a little bit of variability in what they probably ride day in and day out, you see some amazing performances.
Yeah, it was sick. Like, it was really sick to see, like, how everyone was just like, I don't know, just bringing something different to their game. And I think those guys who are like not afraid to do that, I don't know if this is true, but before I started commentating, like, I heard a rumor that Gabby Medina gets a new batch of boards everywhere he goes. Like, he can just jump on anything and surf it and know that he can win comps. So then I don't know if that's true. Like, this is a full rumor that I heard, but I was like, oh, that's crazy. But then if anyone
could do it, you'd think it's Gabe.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely. And like, I wouldn't want to travel with like 5 board bags around the world either. So it's like, for those guys who like are traveling with a big crop of boards and are like not afraid to do like minor tweaks everywhere they go, like Jake, like Mateus, or like Lobby, like completely changing the rocker of his board, I think it's really cool, like, to not be afraid to do that in such a small turnaround too. Like, we were in Margaret's a week ago. Like, it's actually pretty nuts to know that you can so quickly, like, these guys are so good at surfing that they can so quickly jump on a completely different equipment and then get a result in such a quick turnaround. So more than anything, I just love that 40-year board mixed with Ethan Ewing's Juliet. And it's pretty interesting to know that like all of those guys were on Juliets except for Steph, but on the men's in the semifinals who were on a DHD were on a Juliet. And I said to Darren, I was like, do you see anyone beating Ethan on his own model? And Darren was like, if anyone could do it, it's probably Connor. But no one could beat Ethan Ewing on his own model. And that just goes to show like how good his Juliet is. Like, it would just work so perfectly for Ethan Ewing.
I love having you on this podcast for this exact reason, because you've been on the glass in the proverbial trenches. You're getting a real-time feel for what the surfers have been riding and how their shapers have been responding. You brought up Gabriel Medina a little while ago, and he's been an interesting topic as far as surfboards go this season. In the extended off season last year, we saw him starting to ride some Channel Islands boards. He obviously has his longtime shaper Johnny Cabianca Shapes, who was on the Gold Coast as well. And, within the tiny circles of my WhatsApp threads, everyone was losing their minds because someone screenshotted and then sent it around that he was riding a JS in the training session. So I'm curious, if there's any other chatter just around Gabe and the boards, he's been riding. He ultimately decided to stick with the Cabiancas in the event. He looked awesome, but I think he even brought it up in one of his post heats. He's like, this is exciting. I'm happy to be here. I'm getting to try a bunch of different boards, and I'm excited to be on the tour this year.
There wasn't like a too much chatter about Gabby and his boards. I feel like him trying all of these different models, it's either for him to make a big move or to him just enjoy like surfing different shapers, or maybe he's going back to Cabianca and being like, hey, this JS worked really well in this. Can we merge that with this model? You never really know like the end goal with all of this, but I just feel like Gabby looks so relaxed and so at ease and just so like he just loves surfing. And even Richie Lovett, he was like, because I obviously didn't get to see him on the tour until now. Like, this is the first time I'm ever really seeing him like in person and like getting the feel of like his aura and his energy. And like he is just an absolute machine. But Rich was like, he's surfing more than ever, more than I've ever seen in the past. And just seeing him be so in love with surfing at the moment is pretty crazy. So yeah, I love the fact that he's trying so many boards. There wasn't a lot of chatter on it. Because I think if you're Gabby Medina, you can kind of do whatever you want. Really, like that's just what I
See,
think.
it seems that way. It's funny, and it's interesting to hear Rich's take on him as well, because someone brought up a similar conversation to me in Bells, and I said, similar to you and the gratitude you feel being around for these moments. Like I feel it even after 20 years, but like especially being around for someone like Gabe's sort of ascent to the world title in 2014, and I've had the privilege of working with him and his team for a long time. And someone was like, "Well, is it different now that he's he's not with Rip Curl, et cetera?" And I said, "He's always been really good with me, like to work with." I said, but the one thing I did bring up was like, when you are a superstar like that, you end up having quite the entourage. You have, your publicist and your handler and your manager and your trainer, and then you want to definitely respect all those relationships. I'm like, there's a few less now, and so like I'll get like a WhatsApp from him that's like, "Hey, good to talk to you. Like, what's the Wi-Fi code?" And I'm like, "Oh, he's got to do this himself now." So it's like, it's pretty good.
He's pretty cool. Like I literally am starstruck by him. Like
yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, sure, why not?
He's a full-blown celebrity. Like, you should have seen the beach when he would run down for his heats. Like, I have never seen anything like that, especially for that heat between him and Felipe. Like, the crowd went crazy. Like, it was like the Foo Fighters just walked out on stage and they were about to sing their first song. Like, that's what the crowd was like. And then he would run out and, like, people were running with him. And then Felipe was behind him. And, like, it's just, like, this loud, like crazy chirp from the beach. So yeah, he's more than a pro surfer. He's a full blown celebrity, and not many pro surfers that get to that level. But Gabby Medina is like a household name, which is pretty crazy.
No question. Well, taking a look at where the top 5 stand on the Surfboard Empire CT Shaper rankings presented by Vea coming out of Snapper Rocks, we've talked a lot about them, but DHD, number 1, they swept the event. Steph Gilmore, Ethan Ewing, first place. They also had Nadia Aristarbe, they had 3rd, Molly Picklum, 5th, Connor O'Leary, 2nd, Liam O'Brien, 3rd, like radical showing from DHD. And they've got Jess Starling on the team. It's an embarrassment of riches for Darren Hanley. Lost 3 times CT Shapers of the Year. They're now in 2nd place. Sawyer Lindblad grabbed a 3rd for them. Gabriella Bryan a 5th, which is good because, as we said, no male quarterfinalists from the Mayhem team. Channel Islands, they dropped a 3rd. Only had Lakey Peterson with a 5th. Probably a tough one for them. Sharp Eye, Luana Silva 2nd. Felipe Toledo 3rd. They also had Katie Simmers 5th and Leonardo Fioravante 5th. I don't know if this has been official or not, but I was going to ask you because Katie, famously has ridden for Chris Borst out of San Diego for years, a lot of success with that relationship. We've seen her on Sharp Eyes this year at Bells and in Margaret River and on the Gold Coast. We also saw her ride Pangs out at Margaret River on the bigger days. I don't know if there's been like a formal announcement between them, but she might kind of be in the Gabriel Medina space of like she's able to kind of try whoever.
Yeah. I think it's more like she just loves trying surfboards. I don't think there's like an official move over. I think she's just like enjoying trying different models and different shapes. I really like the Sharp Eyes under her feet. I obviously love the Borst as well, but there seems to be a bit of an element of speed that's like really working with the Sharp Eyes for Katie right now. Especially at Bells, I felt like they looked really fast, especially during some of those flatter sections. I'd love to like sit on the beach and like actually watch her like take out a Borst and then take out a Sharp Eye and like really compare them in those two cents. But Katie on the Sharp Eyes, I'm a really big fan. She also, I'm not sure if you got to see it in the Nowadays movie. She was on Molly's board at J-Bay and she looked good on the DHDs as well. So I feel like she's just
I definitely
really
saw it. I didn't understand
surfboards.
it though. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely
like
did like a double take a few
up
times at
to
J-Bay. I'm like, where, like, interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
fully. Like her boards, her like board bag never rocked up, and then Molly was like, "Here, take out some of my boards." And I hosted the panel that night between all the ladies after the Australian premiere of the movie. And Molly was like, "Yeah, Katie definitely showed me how I should be riding those boards." I was like, "Oh my god."
Well, I mean, a lot of implication for the Surfboard Empire CT Shaper rankings as well. I mean, Sharp Eye has historically had such a radical men's team. You know, you've got Felipe Toledo, you've got Jack Robinson previously, Kanoe Igarashi previously. They're now on JS. But, you know, Luana with her ascent on the women's side and potentially having someone like Katie Simmers, that's great for Sharp Eye. And then, you know, in fifth at the moment, we talked a little bit about them, is JS, and they're just on a heater. You know, Jess, you mentioned you got to go to Raglan a few weeks ago. It's the upcoming stop on the CT, the Corona Cerro New Zealand Pro. Brand new stop on the CT, brand new wave for most of the world's best surfers. Before that last trip, had you spent a lot of time at the wave? And if so, can you just tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, for sure. I've actually been to Raglan a couple of times. So I rode for Roxy for a really long time. And when I was with Roxy, I went over and competed at Raglan at the King Queen of the Point, which is like this national event that they constantly have over at Rags at Manu Bay. And that was my first trip over maybe about 2 years ago. And I absolutely adore it. It's this really quirky and cute little town. Like, it's got so much personality and charm. And I actually really love the wave. I grew up at Narrabeen, so I grew up going left like my whole childhood. So I actually prefer my backhand to my forehand. And so any chance to go left, I will. And Raglan's just like one of those places where it's a really fun wave. It's incredibly easy to surf. Like, it's just this perfect wave that just peels down the point. It's steep at the start, then it goes a little bit fat, and then it steepens up again towards the end. But it definitely has its own little idiosyncrasies. Like, it's got a low tide reverse sweep, so that you have to be careful of. It's actually like broken down into 3 different points along the coastline at Raglan, but where we'll be set up is at Manu Bay, which is the lowest part of the point. And I think it's just nice to have a left-hand point break on the championship tour, and to see the Goofy go frontside and to see the natural footers go backside, and like who actually put in the time going left in the off season, because it was announced relatively late before the season started. So a lot of people didn't have the chance to like sharpen up their backhand or like make a quick trip over to Raglan. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see like who actually spends time going left during that off season.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. You know, different, certainly interesting in a lot of ways. And I'm going to ask you to play armchair psychiatrist here for a moment. So, okay. You know, if you're a CT surfer, which really, we have had no guest that's been anywhere closer to being a CT surfer than Jesse Starling. But if you're heading to a brand new wave, are you the kind of surfer that would lean more into developing equipment that is specific for that kind of a wave, like a Raglan kind of a wave? Or because it's new, do you try to rely on kind of consistency and stability and rely on sort of your tried and trusted equipment?
I would compare it back to a different wave on tour that is maybe a right-hand point break. I've never been to El Salvador. I'm going to get to go this year. But I would probably compare it back to like El Salvador or Winky. Like, it just kind of has that sort of pace and that sort of shape to the wave. So if I had a board that went really good at El Salvador and Winky, or a model that I trusted, for me, I go to the DHD Lightning. Like, if I'm going to Winky, I just know that board. It's got a little bit more of a flatter rocker, so I'm going to have speed through those dead sections, but also it's going to pop in those steeper ones. I would rely on a model that I know goes good at that, and then just Uno reverse it and do it on my backhand, because essentially, like, it's a really easy wave to surf. So I would look for a model with a slightly flatter rocker. I don't think I would muck around with a whole new equipment. I would just take what I had in a model that I really relied on and pair it with like my trusted fins, which for me is the FCS Glass Toledos. And just go with that, know that I have equipment that works, because you can't get bogged down in that stuff right before an event, because you could psych yourself out pretty easily. So I would just go back to like what I have 100% faith in on a right-hander, and know that it's going to work on my backhand at a left. That's what I would do.
That is a great segue, because I was going to ask, you know, as a high quality surfer yourself, Jess, and a premium DHD team rider, what's your go-to surfboard yourself?
Well, for ages it was the Juliet. but I've recently made the move over to the Lightnings, which is Mick's new model. And I always thought like nothing would ever come close to the Juliet for me, but the Lightning is like next level. I ride a 5, 6.5. Sounds really pretentious, like adding that little half on the end at like
I wouldn't
23.
have it any other way. I love that.
Yeah. And then it's like 23 liters. So, and it just goes like I can take it anywhere across the world and it just absolutely flies. So that's what I'll be riding today. So.
Now I have to ask, right? Like between your full-time competitive career and now that you are an analyst, like what's the board bag difference? Like, okay, so let's say we're going to Raglan in a week. Like, are we still packing a few boards? Are they all between 5, 6.5 and 5, 6 3/4? Like, yeah. Or is it just like, I'm here to work. I've got one board. Let's go.
I am definitely not a one board traveler. Like I just can't commit to that yet. I went from probably traveling like
we'll
5 boards and I was like, yeah, I'll get there slowly. I usually go with about 2. When I first started like commentating internationally, I was definitely like a 3-board traveler. I had like a step up, a normal board and a twin fin because I was like in my twin fin, like I'm a free surfer now. I'll do whatever I want kind of phase. And now I'm like 2 boards. The twin fin is out. And I just have like my normal board and a step up for when it gets a bit bigger. I probably could just travel with my normal board, but I'm not ready for that yet. I'm just easing my way into the one board transition.
I respect it. When I started, I was like, same. I'm like, and I was nowhere near as good a surfer as you were or are. But I would be like, yeah, of course I'll need my 6'10" for Arica. Like, and I'd like, why the fuck did I pack that? I'm like, I'm not going up there. What am I talking about? And that's kind of the funny thing about being on tour. You're like, if the waves are good, I'm probably working. And if they're not, then maybe I'm surfing. So
I've never not surfed so much in my life. Like I talk about surfing so much, but I never go surfing because I'm so tired at the end of the days. And it's so funny. Like I take my step up everywhere and I reckon I've used it like twice this year. Like I probably don't need to bring it, but it's
I love it. I'm going to keep lighting the torch for Jess Starling Step Up. That's like that should be like its own like Instagram handle, like a comedy account. It's just Jess Starling Step Up, and it's just made it to Raglan, sitting in the closet. Yeah,
yeah, literally, probably will come to Raglan.
That was fun. All right. Well, that was the Surfboard Empire CT Shaper Rankings presented by Vea Breakdown. We're going to take one more break. And when we come back, we're going to answer listener questions. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to the Lineup Podcast. My name is Jesse Starling and I'm here with Dave Prodan. We have a really fun segment where we have some questions over from the Instagram at the Lineup Pod. And I now get to quiz Dave on some questions, which is really fun for me. I've been waiting for my moment to do this. So, Dave, first one. What were the many 9-point rides missing to become a 10 over at the Gold Coast?
Oh, you're going to quiz me on like the hardcore surfer knowledge when it's definitely more appropriate for you. Geez, I mean, like, it's tough, right? I think surfing, it's probably the most passionately watched, subjectively scored sport on the planet. Like, I can't think of a bigger one where more people tune in and have opinions on something that's subjectively scored. And there's so many variables, right? Like, surfing takes place in the most dynamic field of play in all of sports with the ocean. And when you have waves like we had at Snapper Rocks, I think you mentioned it earlier, you know, the judges were really pushing the surfers to deliver more. I think just because of the potential and the canvases that were out there and what they were providing. And yeah, I mean, there were a lot of 9-point plus rides that were excellent and amazing. You know, for a 10, I just think it's like you have to see something that has never been done before. At the waves like we had at Snapper, I don't think a single maneuver gets it done, and probably not even one combination of maneuver. It's probably the linkage of an entire ride. I think one of the interesting things too, we saw some great tubes, but it wasn't like a barrel fest necessarily, despite kind of the swell being solid. So yeah, I don't know. It's not a great answer. I just think there's always a little bit of a gap between what the panel of judges, and for the record, I think, you know, this kind of goes undiscussed a lot, but like the judging panel are all like elite surfers themselves, and a lot of them are ex-CT surfers, and they don't ever really talk about it because they sort of like live a monastic existence. But at the end of the day, like, they understand the conditions, they understand how good the CT field is, and they understand what the potential is out there. And so it's a long way of saying there isn't a whole much more surfers could do, but there was just enough that some of them could have kind of gotten up into the tens. But, you know, that's my armchair analysis from being in California and watching this event on the broadcast. But Jess, what did you see on the ground there? And were there any rides that you were like, that could have been a 10?
There were 2 rides that I think could have gone a 10. And one of them is validated by Mark Richards himself. So I'm going to go lead in with that.
God himself.
Just saying really quickly. So, yeah, the God himself. There was a 9.5 that Lobby had in round 3, and I had the privilege of hosting that heat with Flicken and Mark Richards. And I said to MR, I was like, what do you think he needed to do for that wave to be a 10? It was a 9.5. He absolutely belted it, and he got a sick little tube down the end and then had an amazing finish. And MR goes, I think that was a 10. I don't think there was much more he could have done on that wave. And in his opinion, that was a 10. And I was like, I actually thought the same as well. I thought that was a 10-point ride. But then Felipe went out and did what Felipe does best. And that 9.77, I immediately thought 10-point ride. Like, that was the best surfing we have seen this season to date. And I don't know if he could have pushed any harder. Like, he was just that wave, I felt bad for the waves. So I think maybe for the men, maybe we didn't really see like a lot of airs go down, and maybe that's what the judges were looking for. But I thought those 2 waves probably could have eclipsed the 10. I don't know. Did you think they could have eclipsed the 10 as well?
I mean, that's a great call. And I don't want to speak for the judges. I have judged one heat and I have an immaculate record, but we won't go into that. The truth, though, is, like, I think every single one of them would tell you there's more than one way to get a 10. Like, it's not just that they are looking for airs in the inclusion. That Felipe ride you referenced is like, he was so full tilt on a rail and just like cleaving the wave in half with like every turn. He was going so fast. And so, yeah, I'm with you. And the lob example as well, far be it from me to argue with God himself, MR. So yeah, no, I think I probably myself throw 10s. And I'm sure, you know, if the score line was what it was, we can go back and have a look. Like 1 or 2 of the judges may have thrown him. So. Well,
that question was from Dan JC264, and I loved it because when I saw it, I was like, that's actually a really good question. Next one is from Lonnie_Coco, and they said Steph is 2 spots from 5, so if she wins a 9th title, what would that do for women's surfing?
Oh, well, she won her first title in 2007, so that's like 20 years between 1 and 9. What does that do for women's surfing? Well, I mean, I think, like, similar to Gabe, I think Steph is like a superstar, like a global superstar kind of unto herself. So I think, number one, it elevates women's surfing just because more people are talking about it when superstars do well. And potentially someone like Steph winning a 9th world title. I think the field that she's facing in 2026 is more difficult than like at any other point. I actually think that, you know, for a number of years when she first qualified, she was, from a talent perspective, so far ahead of the rest of the field. And that field at the time was amazing in and of itself, but she was just like a new species that had entered the ecosystem. Yeah. And I kind of don't really think she was challenged for world titles until Carissa turned up. And, you know, the fact that she was able to kind of battle for years there and then to battle back and get her 8th world title, she doesn't have anything more to prove. I think she's just so competitive. And I think we saw that, you know, on display. I would say we actually saw it on display at Bell's and Margaret's because she was so frustrated, you know, and if she didn't care, she'd be like, oh, whatever, you know. But to come back and win on the Gold Coast is amazing. And I don't think she's anywhere near done winning. So I think a 9th world title is well within the cards. I just think it's going to be really challenging because the field is so good. And they've also come up, a lot of them have come up watching a tour and developing their own approach to surfing that was radically different than the tour that a young Steph Gilmore watched when she was growing up. You know, having waves like Pipe and Fiji and Tahiti consistently on tour, you know, young women are preparing for that. Whereas when, you know, Steph was qualifying, those weren't mainstays on tour. So she didn't really have to even think about preparing for those waves necessarily. She's just so good she can still surf them well. But I just think you have a different kind of animal group on tour because some of those young surfers are like, well, yeah, I'm awesome in Tahiti. Like, that's why I'm here kind of thing. And it's like, I think that'll be a hard one this year. But what about you? What about you think?
Yeah, I think it'll be hard as well. I think if she won a ninth world title, like, she would just be breaking her own record. Like, she's already done what we haven't seen before by winning 8 and like eclipsing lanes. To win 9 would be incredible. I'm such an even numbers person. Like, if that was me, I'd want 10. Like, I wouldn't be satisfied with 9. Like, I'd want to like round it up to that 10. But she just keeps breaking her own records. Like, even winning yesterday on the Gold Coast, like, that's her 34th championship tour win. And the most winning female of all time prior to that was herself with 33. So, like, she's just consistently, like, rewriting the script for female surfing. So I think the ninth world title, to know what it would do is, like, I don't even know what it would do. Like, it's pretty crazy to even think about. And it's not a question on here, but, like, do you think we'll ever see anyone else get 9 world titles ever?
I mean,
or 8? Do you think we'll see anyone eclipse Steph's 8?
I mean, I never say never, but like, we used to have this conversation with Gabe, right? When he won in 2014 and he was kind of like in similar fashion to when Steph came on tour, like he was like a different species that had entered the men's ecosystem. And, you know, he won his first world title at 20. In 2014, I think he beat, you know, Kelly's first world title age by like a few months. And we all kind of said, well, you know, if anyone's got a shot, it's him. And Gabe has had an amazing career, but he only has 3, right? Only 3, right? But we're talking about compared to 11. So I just think it's a rarefied air that you even get to kind of be on planet Earth when these people are around doing their things. And I was going to ask you, since you live on the Gold Coast, like, I mean, Steph has got to be, you know, already like a deity anytime she's like out in the water or walking on the streets there. I mean, would there be a huge difference if she won a 9th, or would just, you know, Coolangatta like burn itself down for a few days in celebration?
Yeah, Cooley would probably burn itself down in celebration for sure for a couple of days. But she's just such a queen already. Like, wherever she goes, like, people, like, the streets whispers like that. Oh my God, that's Steph Gilmore. It's the same with Mick. Like, if Mick walks around, like, everyone's like, oh my God, that's Mick Fanning. Like, I'm still like that. And now I get to hang out with them and like call them friends. So it's like the 9th would be crazy because it's obviously never been done before, but she would be breaking her own record that she set for herself. Like, it's pretty crazy to even put that in conversation. And now that she has a win, like, she actually does have a title campaign for the year. She just has to like stay really consistent. I think El Salvador would be good for her. Anyways.
Yeah.
Next question.
No. Real quick before we go to that one, because you made me think of this came up quite a lot during the 2010 season when Kelly won his 10th world title, but all year. And it was this conversation on tour of, you know, I mean, it was top 45 back then. So the other 45 surfers on tour, it was this conversation of like, it's not so much that I want to win my world title or win this event or win this round or this heat. I want to stop Kelly from winning 10. Like, I don't want to be on tour when he won 10. Like, it was weird too, because a lot of them were like, I want to be here as a fan, but like as a competitor, like, I don't want to be one of the surfers that allowed this to happen. Do you think any of that exists on the women's tour right now if Steph made a run for 9th?
I
like, is Katie Simmers
does.
getting up being like, I'm standing in the way of this?
No, absolutely not. She's like the most mellow person ever. Like, I definitely think Katie wants to win more world titles, but if she got to see Steph win a 9th, I think she would be the first person on the water's edge to give her a hug. But there's definitely a few ladies in there that I think would want to put an end to it for selfish reasons, that they want to win their first. I mean, think about how competitive Erin Brooks is, and she hasn't won a world
Sure.
title yet. Gabby Bryan, like it feels weird to say that Gabby Bryan isn't a world champion. Like that feels really weird. So I feel like that for selfish reasons, like they would want to put a stop to it so that they can win their first. And then I would say that Carissa probably doesn't want her to win anymore. Like I would say that Carissa wants that for herself and slowly start to like edge her way back up, even though she's got 5, which is incredible, to get 6 and to be a bit closer. But it's pretty cool, like to see those two women like come back, and you can see how shocked Steph was to win yesterday. Like she was like, I just didn't think I was going to win an event this year, and now she has. And I'm really excited to see how Carissa answers back to that, because Carissa's biggest driver in her career is Steph Gilmore, and Steph they came back at the same time, and Steph just won an event. Carissa's not going to be happy sitting on the sidelines right now. Like she's obviously the kindest and sweetest person in the world, but she's definitely going to be like feeling a bit of fire underneath, I think.
It's a great point.
Okay, next question is from Noah Purrington. With the remaining events, which would be the one to have a 1v1 with Carissa?
With the remaining
That's a really good
events,
question.
Like which one would you want to draw her in a heat? Because the answer is none.
Yeah.
none, and I'll give you the tip. None of the ones we just finished, I wouldn't want to have her. But yeah, geez, like it's a good segue too, right? Because we were just talking about this in relation to Steph. Like Steph had 2 like very uncharacteristic results at Bells and Margaret River. She was dead last, and then she won. Carissa feels like she's kind of been building, but hasn't had the win yet. So I wonder what that's going to do motivation-wise for her moving forward. I got to talk to Carissa just before the season started, and she's always so articulate and kind of communicating how she's been feeling and what's on her mind. I really got the sense that this year, the cautious part of her was like, I want this to work, because I want to prove to myself I can do this now that I'm a mom. And there's a lot of pathos that kind of goes into that. But then on the other side of that coin, she kind of admitted, she's like, and I would say this too, it's like, she's arguably been the best surfer in the world for quite a long time, and certainly through like the halcyon days of her career, and that she would have won a lot more if she had gotten out of her own way kind of psychologically. I think she put a lot of pressure on herself, and I think she's spoken really eloquently about that. And what she said in that conversation before the season started, she goes, now that I'm a mom, it's like this amazing like perspective leveler for me, because absolutely I want to go out and win, but like win, lose or draw, like my kid doesn't know, like I come in and I'm still a mom, like, and I thought, I didn't say it on the podcast, but then I was thinking about it. I'm like, man, if we get Carissa with all her talent and we remove maybe some of the more unproductive parts of like, we all do it, like we kind of be our own worst enemy in a way psychologically, she could be so dangerous. And I'm kind of hiding from the question here for a reason, but like we've got New Zealand coming up, El Salvador, Rio, Tahiti, Fiji, Trestles, Surf Abu Dhabi, Portugal, and then we finish at Pipe. She could be awesome at all these events. I'm really excited to see her in New Zealand, because I think her backhand is arguably even more impressive than her forehand. And you've got Raglan, you've got fresh motivation of Steph just winning an event. I'm excited to see her there and see how she kind of takes on board the GWM Aussie treble performances and what happens there. But what about you, Jess? What do you think about this question?
Well, I would never want to draw her ever in my life, because she would absolutely smoke me in a heat. But I feel like it's a really interesting point that you were making before. Like if she had gotten out of her own way, like things might have been different. And you can really go back to like the 2 final fives where she went in the yellow jersey, like without being like overcritical, because I couldn't even imagine being in that position. But essentially she lost those world titles. Like they were hers to keep. And if she had won them, she would be tied with Steph and Lane for greatest of all time. She would have 7 world titles to her name. So this is all fuel to her fire. And I think the fact that she just keeps showing up, keep coming back and wanting to be such a role model, like not just for her daughter, but for that next generation, that really is probably more of the fuel to her fire than like what results mean to her. But then again, she's also like the fiercest competitor in the world. So if I had to pick an event where I would want a 1v1, nowhere.
Oh, okay, this is good.
Nowhere against Carissa
All right, but
Moore.
you have to pick. You pick one. I'll pick one too, and it will be an embarrassment.
Okay, if I was Vahine Fierro, let's put it this way: if I was Vahine Fierro, I would want a 1v1 at Chopu because
fair enough.
You're the queen of Chopu. That's the only place and the only person that I would want a 1v1. If I could be someone, that's the only place that I would want a 1v1 with Carissa Moore because she's just so good at that wave.
Well, I can't use your trick of using an avatar on tour, so I'll just pretend it's myself. I'm going to lose everywhere. Let's just be clear. I think, I'll pick two. In terms of chances, the dice roll of a beach break in Rio, I'm still going to get annihilated, but there's the chance that my scoreline isn't like horrifically embarrassing compared to yours. Like maybe I'll get like a couple of 2s and she'll beat me with a couple of 4s just because we had a weird heat, and I'll be like, it was kind of respectable. But yeah, a bit like, yeah, right. Got to think about me here. But if I'm going to get blown out anyway, I'll just take her and I out at Cloud Break. That sounds pretty fun. Ooh.
Yeah, that does sound sick. That sounds sick. I've never surfed trestles, so if I was to put it that way, I would want trestles, so I can say that I've surfed trestles.
Yeah.
With no one else.
She's so good, too. You brought up, too, like there was those 2 world titles, the WSL finals years. But then, there were another, I'm counting it now, 1, 2, 3, 4. She had another 5 years where she finished 3rd. So theoretically, like in the hunt, those 5 years, right? And so, yeah, I just... like both her and Steph, it's amazing because for as much as they've accomplished and as amazing as they've surfed, like I still think they're surfing like at their prime in 2026. And definitely the field is like way harder, but both of them could walk away with titles this year. Well, one of them can, but you know what I mean? Either of them can walk away with a title.
I completely agree. Like they are 100% in the mix to win the world title, and just that Steph Carissa rivalry, like it's something that like this generation now grew up watching. Like they're the women that like we grew up wanting to be. So the fact that they're getting the chance and then like still showing it to this new generation, I think really does speak volumes to like how good Steph and Carissa are at surfing, and more specifically like competitive surfing too. Like they can be so effortlessly themselves in a jersey, and some people never find that in a lifetime in competitive sport. So Steph and Carissa, they cannot be counted out for the world title race this year. There's no way.
It's a great one. Well, thanks to everyone that wrote in at the Lineup Pod on Instagram. If we didn't get to your questions, please keep hitting us up. We'll hit you in the DMs. We love talking about surfing. And Jesse Starling, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thanks so much for all the analysis you do at every event. I mean, as a surf fan, we're all so fortunate to have you on the program. And safe travels to New Zealand, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Let's do this again.